So, my name is Lisa Callahan. I am the founder here of the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group. And I am so happy to bring you this amazing topic today that is called Talk to Me. And I want you to learn the language of your inner voice. So, what we want to do is we want to get comfortable with the things that actually make us uncomfortable, meaning the thoughts that come up into our head that are mismatched from what we say we want. And we want to be able to see this through a wider lens, because if we don't, we're just going to stay stuck doing the same things over and over and over and over again. And the reason why I want you to learn what it is that your inner voice is saying is because there is something inside of you called intuition. Now, I know you've heard intuition before, and so many times the things that our intuition is telling us to do is like the exact opposite of what we say we want to do. And we think that our intuition is guiding us, and it keeps pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. And yet at the same time, we keep resisting what it is our intuition is telling us because of fear. Now, so many times our intuition is telling us to do something really big, like leave a relationship, change careers, move across the country, I don't know, start a family, not start a family, different things that we are pushed towards. Some things happen to us, meaning that like we didn't call for this, but yet at the same time, to be able to change our response to the things that do happen in our lives, sometimes we have to make hard decisions. And when that's happening, our intuition is going to be lit on fire to tell us which direction we need to go. Because our intuition is that voice inside of our gut, it's literally like deep inside of us. It's not coming from our head knowledge. It's actually coming from our soulful feelings within ourselves. But because we tend to have become disconnected in some way with our spiritual self, like our inside voice, and we kind of are like la 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 la, like the kid with the fingers in our ears, and we don't want to listen to that inner voice. It tends to come out in what we call like numbing ourselves. And so I actually have a quote here that I wanted to read. This is from a book called Constant Cravings. It's by Doreen Virtue. I sort of recommend it, I sort of don't recommend it. It's a great book if you're in a mindset to know that there's so much to learn about yourself that's beyond the food. What she does is she talks about the food and how you're using the food to get you to a certain feeling, which I agree with. And yet at the same time, if your mindset is just wrapped around the food, this book might be a little advanced and a little confusing. So I'm just going to read just the one or two quotes that I had found that I thought was valuable, and I'll share them with you. And that's what's really nice about working with a coach, is because we can decide together what is going to add the most value to your your interests, like what it is that you need. Because the truth is that we're all starting off in a different place, and we have to meet you where you're at, because some of the information that you're getting out there on the internet, it might be above the level of awareness that you are ready for. That doesn't mean you're not smart or you can't process it. It just is exactly what it sounds like. It is above the level of readiness that you're in need of at the time. So it literally would be like somebody finally getting to the point where you could learn multiplication, but then as soon as you start to be like, oh wow, multiplication's a thing and it exists, someone throws you into a trigonometry class and now you're like, what the F? Like what? It doesn't make sense. And so I like to feed you pieces of information that are valuable so that you can really hear what I'm saying. Because I know that all of this is confusing. Trust me when I say that when I came into this process and I started to learn about like my inner voice and all this stuff that like I didn't want to learn about any of these things. I just wanted to like go on a diet, eat what the diet books told me, look like that girl in the magazine or on Instagram or whatever, and that's all I wanted to do. I just thought that if I could just stay thin and fit and work out and, eat like this certain combination of food, like I thought that I would be okay then. But at the same time, I wish that that was the case. It just wasn't. And the reason why it wasn't is because I had all this inside stuff going on that I didn't know was on the inside. I just wanted to stay surface level. And yet at the same time, my intuition kept coming up from the inside. Like my inner voice kept coming up and it kept telling me that there was something else that I needed to look at. I had zero idea that that's what I was supposed to do. And so it took me decades to get through this, decades of pain that I didn't need to be in. So this quote from Doreen Virtue in her book, Constant Cravings, and I know she has other books, I just don't remember what they are. It says, when we deny our strong emotions, they grow stronger. As they gain strength, they seek outlets. Denied emotions manifest themselves in many unpleasant ways, including food cravings, physical aches, illness, depression, anxiety, phobias, and sleep disorders. And that's really a thing. And I know for me, I struggled with almost all of these things, really. Tons of phobias. When I was young, I had anxiety. The anxiety led me to phobias. I had trouble driving. I had trouble swallowing pills. I had to go to sleep with a paper bag next to my bed because I would wake up in the middle of the night just like hyperventilating, and I'd have to sit with the bag to be able to get myself, back into a state of reality, because all of these intuition, these inner voice things, they were coming up. I was trying to ignore them. And so I stuffed them down with food because the food made me feel comfortable for the moment, for like this much of the moment. Then after the fact, then the food was not good because then I would feel like garbage about myself, which would spin me into a feeling of out of control and anxiety and all the stuff and all the phobias and all the things, which inevitably bled into my happiness and definitely affected my sleep. The other one quote that I wanted to give to you from her is, she says, our denial system is incredibly effective in shielding us from honestly facing ourselves. Denial stems from a fear of admitting, yes, this bothers me. The consequences of such admission can be even scarier, though, as in, now I must take responsibility for making changes to correct the situation, which is why we all run back to those diets, because when we run back to the diets, it feels safe. It really does, but it's a setup. It's literally a setup. It's as if you stepped out and away from your intuition that's telling you that it's not about the food, and you know it, you really do, but it's as if you stepped out of yourself, ran in front of you, took your big foot, tripped yourself, fell down, and then now you're just like, okay, stalled her from actually figuring this out, right? Because your inner voice kind of got in your way. Now there's two sides of this inner voice, but hang on, I didn't finish reading the quote. It says, the consequences of such admission can be even scarier, though, as in, now I must take responsibility for making changes to correct the situation. Change is frightening because we fear our situation might worsen instead of improve. That is fake. It's fear. And fear, we can use the acronym false evidence appearing real. So sometimes we think like, okay, well, I'm gonna hop to it, I'm gonna get to it. But we go in this way that is like very surface level, and our intuition is like, oh, here she goes again, another diet. Okay, I'll just wait. But as the intuition, which is the spiritual side of you, is back waiting, you're making decisions in the present moment that are affecting your body long term. And so you're doing irreversible damage. Diabetes, heart, lungs, muscles, aches, pains, joints, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's irreversible damage. So now, on top of everything else, you got to schlep that illness along with you, which is fine, because a lot of those illnesses and such, they are, when I say irreversible, I mean if you're going to continue down that narrow path. I mean, sometimes you need medication and that's it. You have to stay on that medication because your body has now adapted to that way. And at the same time, trust me when I say that if you open your mindset to a new level of awareness and you start to listen to your intuition and you start to pay attention and you start to make changes that are going to be effective for you both in the present and long term, and you don't worry about anything other than just where it is that you can see the vision of your future self, because you know that you're letting your intuition guide you and you trust the process of what's happening. If you can do that, then yeah, you can lower your medication, you could get off things, you could change your whole entire life. Not if it's scary though, right? And so we end up staying away from our intuition. We are not speaking the same language. You can't hear your inner voice. Your inner voice is talking to you, but you're like, again, like la la la, and you're not listening to your inside voice that's telling you, hey lady, pull your you know what together. It's time. We gotta move through this. And you might back away from that and be like, okay, but I'm scared, but I'm scared, but I'm scared. And that's okay. And at the same time, if you never take that leap forward, you will continue to stay stuck, but not just stuck. It'll continue to give attention and it'll honor the places of yourself, the voices inside of yourself that you flippin' hate. Like, you don't like that inner voice. You don't like that voice that tells you you're not good and that you're not good enough and you're never going to be good enough and that you're not worthy and that you're not pretty and that you're not, and you look at pictures and you're like, ew, oh, gross, cut me out of that. Like, you don't like that part of you. And so the thing is that when we back away from our intuition that says, okay, man, lady, you got to go forward. We have to figure this out. And you're like, no, I'll just go on another diet, la, 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 la. When you're not listening to your inner voice, you are honoring the very parts of you that you hate the most. And those are the parts of you that you're actually afraid of. But because you're so used to those parts, it's all you know. It's all you think you know. It's very interesting because it's not all you know. Once upon a time, in an unguarded moment, you knew differently. You knew better. You knew something that was good and whole in you. It's just that there's been parts of your life where you have gotten away from that because of the things that have happened in your life, the tragedies, the traumas, and even if they weren't so quote unquote bad, right? If you had a decent childhood and now you have things that you know you need to figure out, but at the same time you're like, oh gosh, if I say that I have problems, then that's like dishonoring my family, or like that saying that my mom didn't do a good job. It's not true. It's just the things that your inner voice is wanting to share with you, but you're blocking it. And you're blocking it because you're not listening to the language that your inner voice is speaking. So we want to be able to quiet things down a little bit. I want you to write yourself a note. Write yourself a note on your paper and ask yourself, what are 3 things, let's say, we'll just start with 3. 3 things that I do that I say I don't want to do, but I end up doing anyways, or things that I have happened to me over and over and over, and I can't understand why those things keep happening to me. Or if you're blaming someone else for your circumstances, like if you're mad at your husband because he brings the junk food in the house and you're like, well, he doesn't care, but I do care. And so it's all his fault. Like, I want you to look at ways that you're blaming, ways that you're kind of taking your story as is and being like, well, if my mom didn't have thick thunder thighs, then I wouldn't either. That might be true. At the same time, though, you don't have to look at them as big thunder thighs. It's a human part of your body, right? Like, I don't know, structurally speaking, for my size, my butt, you guys can't see my butt, but it's bigger than maybe a woman my size, so I was teased as a child. I was actually teased. I was called bubble butt and look at her butt, and she, She walks like I have my structure of my spine is very curved in, so my butt kind of sticks out even just from my spine. And so when I can't walk any other way. Like it's actually causes me back issues. So I kind of walk shifting side to side, which makes me look like I'm wiggling my butt. So I got teased. I got teased as a teenager, like, oh, she thinks she's all that. She's shaking her butt. I couldn't help it. It's the way I walk. And so it's interesting how we can take these things, right, in our minds and turn them into our lifelong story. It's like this always happens to me and I'm the victim of this story that's mine. And when we tell it like it's like, look at what happened to me. And clearly there are tremendous traumas that have happened in tremendous situations that's just a teasing of children. And so clearly there are things that are, happened in lives that are much deeper than that. There are also things that have happened that are, don't seem quite as tragic. And yet at the same time, this is our story. So we have to be able to decide what we're doing with our story and not compare it to anyone else and not label ourselves as being a certain way because this is how we feel. We also have to be allowed to express our feelings as a human being and not stifle that and not push ourselves back to say like, oh wow, my story is not really important. Like, oh, what happened to her was so much different. Like, that's not okay. You have to be able to hear your own voice coming up through inside of you. Now, I will say that there are about 60 to 80,000 thoughts that rummage through your head each day. So if you have all of these thoughts, and a lot of times these thoughts come in during idle time, either when you're trying to sleep, taking a shower, folding laundry, washing the dishes, driving in the car. The next thing you know, you're in a head-on conversation with yourself and it's going really badly because it's taking you into a place where it's not happening today. Maybe you become tearful all of a sudden. You're just in the car driving. Next thing you know, you're hysterical crying. That happens. You're taking a shower, all of a sudden you're angry and you're like scrubbing your back really hard because you're thinking of something that happened, last week that sort of reminds you deep from within of how your brother treated you when you were 12. We are a connected soul. Like this is how we are. We are human. And so the very same little eyeballs that are in your head right this very second, look in your eyes. Look in the mirror and look at different. I mean, they're the same. Inside of you is the same human being that was born decades ago. You haven't changed. You might look different from the outside, your house, your appearance, yeah. And yet at the same time, these eyes share a story of triumph and struggle, of laughter and sadness, of pleasure and pain, of exciting times and nervous situations. Like these eyes share a story. And I want you to be able to own your truth. And your truth lies inside your vision. So when you're learning how to listen to your inner voice and you're learning how to speak the language of your inner voice, you are going to have to open your mindset to believe that that voice is telling you something that is meant to help you grow. And so what we have in Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, which is where I coach my clients, I coach women to take a spiritual journey, really just a new, to help them build a new foundational relationship with themselves. It's self-discovery. So there's no, religion or anything hokey pokey. I don't do crystals or magic wands or crystal balls or anything like that. It's actually pretty literal. I just got off of the phone with a client today and we got off and she goes, okay then. And I said, yeah, we kind of kicked your ass today, didn't we? And she's like, yeah, I feel a little exhausted and I also feel really powerful and energized too, because we kind of like lay it on the line and we're able to navigate through the inner voice that's trying to steer you in the wrong direction and help you listen to your intuition. Because that inner voice that's trying to steer you in the wrong direction, that's kind of the side of you that is the parts of you that are not the strongest. They're not the most powerful. They're not the parts of you that you even like very much. They might be the pushy ones, the ones that are like coming out swinging. They might be the ones that, were shamed or blamed or had guilt or felt like, they weren't loved. They're the angry children voice inside of us. They're the ones that are, it's unfair. What happened to us was unfair. It's just not fair. And we just want someone to love us. Well, that love has to start with you first. End of story. You cannot give what you do not have. So if you feel like you are a shirt off your back, like taking care of everybody else because you love them so much, and that's great and all, but at the same time, if you're on the bottom shelf of that love, ladder, then you're going to have to look into it, because it's going to come out somewhere. And that's when that denial comes in, and that's when you end up having the cravings and having all of these things, these phobias, these anxieties, these sleepless nights, this, trauma, the thoughts, all the things. And when you are able to soften and quiet things down and listen to your intuition, listen to your inner voice, and be able to hear yourself. So many times we get in the way of ourselves with those 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So if those 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day are rummaging around in your mind, and at the same time, like, you can't clear your mindset, then you're going to stay stuck. And so one of the first things that I'll ask you to do when you start to work with us, we start with something called the mindset reset. And so we help you to be able to see where you are coming out and running around the front of you and pulling your foot out and tripping yourself. Like, we have to see where you're doing that to yourself. And one of the ways that we start, depending on where you are in your mindset, because some people start in a mindset where they've already done self-discovery work, and now they're just like, wow, like, I just need something specific to get around the food. When I started self-discovery, there was no programs about food. I did it on my own with a coaching company called Your Infinite Life Coaching Company, which, by the way, if you look them up, they have an amazing class that's coming up online very soon in September. It's called The Freedom to Be. It's a beautiful program, and this is Your Infinite Life Coaching Company. I do not work for them, but we are a team. A lot of the things that I teach are from that coaching company, and they are very, very welcoming and a beautiful community. So the class is called Freedom to Be. I don't know when it is yet. It's online. If you look them up, you can actually sign up for that class online, which is super cool, because it was used to be in person, but now it's online, and I'm actually going to encourage people to take that class. In any case, getting back, when I first started, I only took self-discovery classes. I didn't take anything that was about food. So what I've done is I've taken both worlds, meaning self-discovery and food, emotional eating, and I've tied it together. And the reason why I did this was because I fixed my own emotional eating issue with this method, and it is completely gone. I even had a problem this weekend with something that was coming up, and food was like not even in my radar, period. And yet I had a good cry. I had some things that I needed to work through. I actually figured out where the root of the problem was. I have worked through it. I'm continuing to work through it. And it was like another layer deep of the things that I actually thought that I had healed probably 5 years ago. Like, it was a situation that came up again, and I was like, wow, why am I going into this narrow thinking pattern? I had to be able to figure that out. Self-discovery helped me to have the tools and the skills and the strategies to be able to do that. So when you're learning to listen to your inner voice, I will ask you to start with the first thing. So step one is going to be to ask yourself, every word that comes into your head, every word that rolls out of your mouth, is this thought meant to help me grow? Or is this thought meant to keep me stuck? So when you say stuff like, oh, I'm not good at that, or, I'm quiet, or I don't like when people do this or something. Like, when anything is just like, that's it, end of line, like no options, there's no room for growth. When you say anything that feels like it is a trap door, like a dead end, you will know that that thought is meant to keep you stuck, because it's like, you have to be able to continue to think about all of the things that are meant to keep you stuck, and then how are you supposed to navigate through your life freely if you have all of these parts of you where you got stuck. So if you think about the places in your life that you got stuck, where you weren't able to listen to your inner voice, where you got hurt, where you got judged, where you got blamed, where you got shame, where you got something, right? And then if we keep those memories alive in the same way that they happened, it's literally like as if you're handcuffing yourself to this like former version of yourself. And it's like now you've got like 30 former versions of yourself handcuffed to you, and you're like schlepping them along, which is really heavy, which is why you feel exhausted, and it's why you feel drained, and it's why you don't feel good about yourself, because you got all this chatter in your head, blah, 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 blah. Remember this, remember that, whatever, and you have to remember to stay angry at people, and you have to remember to stay angry at yourself, and it's a lot of work staying stuck. Remember that. It is a lot of work staying stuck. And you might think, well, I can't just stop, because if I did, you're getting the punishment. The punishment's on you. And that's where we start. So that's an amazing way to be able to open up some new headspace, to be able to speak to your inner voice. Ask yourself, is this thought meant to help me grow, or is this thought meant to keep me stuck? Just a few more things. We had posted something about, it was a little card. It says 5 things to give up. 1, overthinking. 2, fear of change. 3, living in the past. 4, negative self-talk. 5, trying to please everyone. We could go into this, for hours, I'm certain, but we're not going to do that on this video. But really do think about these things. Think about, like, are you overthinking it? And we have one of the gals in our group who came up with this term, and she said, underthink it. And it was because she was kind of arguing with me one day about something where she was going to, like, stick her, feet in the sand there and just plant herself there. And she's like, well, what if I this? What if I that? What if I blah, 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 blah? And I said, underthink it. And she went, oh, okay. If I just underthink it, then I won't be so stressed. And I said, exactly. And then maybe you'll actually get something done. And so she wrote herself a little card. She took like a coloring book and crayons and stuff and wrote herself a little card and laminated it. And she had her little sign next time, and she's like, underthink it, Lisa. And I said, woo! Right? So we want to always be able to get out of our way. We don't want to be the one thing standing in our way. And if we're sitting there thinking and thinking and thinking, we're going to make ourselves nuts, which is kind of the point if you want to stay stuck. The second thing would be fear of change. The truth is that it's not fear of change. It's you are already in a fearful place. So like I said, that's considered false evidence appearing real. And while it might seem like change is the scariest thing, actually staying stuck is the scariest thing. So freedom, that's not scary. That's relaxing. That's enjoyable. That's beautiful. That means that new things will happen. That means that you'll get new opportunities. So to sit on the fear of change, it doesn't make any sense, right? The third one would be living in the past. Yeah, like I said before, chain link to all of those past versions of you, schlepping them along with you. Quite heavy. You don't want that. Negative self-talk, asking yourself, is this thought meant to help me grow, or is this thought meant to keep me stuck? So negative self-talk is meant to keep you stuck, just saying. So just keep that one in mind. And the last one is trying to please everyone. That's great and all. You're a super, super duper great person, and you will continue to be a super duper great person as you put yourself first. Remember, you cannot give what you don't have. So if you don't have love for yourself, if you're not putting yourself first, if you're not saying no to someone else so that you can say yes to yourself, ask yourself that, right? When I say no, what does that allow me to say yes to? And that is actually directly from Your Infinite Life Coaching Company, from my coach. Her name is Pam Dunn, and I really recommend you looking them up. They're really super cool. But if you want to work with me and work on your food thing, then I would like to invite you to a call with me. I also have a program information session that's actually happening next week, so I'd like to invite you to that. There's a link here to sign up for that. You can always reach me on Facebook. You can post anytime you want. Just write on Facebook, literally post in the group and say, Coach Lisa, help, and I'll reach out to you. So we'll connect somehow, some way. When you're ready, you will be ready. And they always say that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So hopefully, if you're watching this video, maybe I've appeared for you because you are ready. All right, I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye now.